Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Anu Joshi and I'm a real estate broker and founder of Anuvision Group, serving Toronto and the GTA. On today's video, I'm going to be discussing the More Homes Built Faster Act of 2022. Now, for those of you who don't know, the MHBFA 2022 is a bill that's been introduced and proposed by the Ford government. So we're talking on a provincial level, and it was introduced and created and basically tabled to address the housing shortage issue that we have. Now, I recognize that currently our economy is going through a whole bunch of stuff. Our real estate market is going through a transitional period. It is changing. Some people call it a crash. Some people call it an adjustment. Some people call it the bubble popping. There's a ton of different ways to look at it. But in all honesty, it is a declining market in the GTA right now. We recognize that. That all aside, we have had a supply issue in Ontario specifically, overall in Canada as well, but in Ontario for a very long time. And with federal governments announcing that they're going to be increasing numbers for immigration, something like 465,000 plus new immigrants in 2023 and 500 plus in 2024, with these kind of crazy intake numbers, we already don't have enough housing to house the people that are already in Canada. And so adding that many more immigrants and new immigrants to the mix, the supply issue is only going to get greater and greater. And so the More Homes Built Faster Act is the Ford government's approach or initiative to try to address the supply issue and make it easier to build more homes faster. So they have proposed all in all about 50 or just over 50 measures. We're not going to go through all of them today, but they are conveniently divided up into 4 categories. They are number 1, which is building more homes. Number 2 is helping home buyers. Number 3 is reducing construction costs and fees. And number 4 is streamlining development approval. So as the first 2 apply most specifically to the real estate market, I'm going to be talking and highlighting the measures that are in these sections. So basically, the government recognizes that the problem that we have in Ontario is clear, that there simply aren't enough homes being built. And the solution is equally clear from their approach, and that is that we need to get more homes built faster. The Ford government has committed to getting 1.5 million homes built over the next 10 years, and the More Homes Built Faster Act is the next step to getting there. So if we look at it, the housing supply shortage, as I mentioned, seems to be a Canada-wide problem, and there's a lot of elements at play, including current things such as high interest rates and whatnot, rising inflation, increasing cost of construction material, shortage of construction material, shortage of labor, and all of that, which adds to it. But we've had a long-standing supply issue, and we need more units to enter the market and to be able to house the people that are already here and that are coming here, right? So let's dive into section number 1, which is building more homes. I'm just going to talk about a couple of the measures that they've proposed. And let's dig into what this act is. So the first thing that I see under building more homes is addressing gentle density. So for those of you who need a definition on that, gentle density really refers to increasing the number of units in urban areas with minimal impact on existing neighborhoods. So not going into a place where there's a detached development and then putting up 2 high-rise condos. So not that. That would obviously take more development approvals and whatnot, and also probably have some pushback from the community. If you've been in that situation before, you know that that's a very real problem too, NIMBYism. But gentle density is a great approach to introduce additional units that can easily be assimilated into the communities and neighborhoods that already exist. So the government is saying is that one of the ways that they're proposing to increase gentle density is by expanding what's allowed to be built without further planning approvals. And they're going to be doing this by permitting up to 3 residential units on most residential lots as of right. So as of right means that the owner of that property has a right to add up to 3 units to the to that lot without going through the city or development authorities and all of that. Or needing like a zoning bylaw change or applying for any sort of thing that way. So the way that 3 units would be in one lot, for example, would be one would be the main residence, a second could be a basement apartment, and the third could be a garden house or a laneway suite for those lots that allow it. So basically up to 3 units within one lot, one owner, and basically allowing, small mom and pop property owners to be able to add units to their existing lot without having to go through the whole municipal bylaw amendment process. So what this will do is it creates rental housing, because those units, those secondary and tertiary units, can be rented out. Secondly, we're seeing tons of changes in terms of family structure and families choosing to live together, obviously to save on these crazy fees. Sometimes, future generations can't afford to live and buy homes in the neighborhoods that their parents lived in and that they grew up in, because prices are so exorbitant. But adding a second or third unit and keeping it within the family or putting it on the rental market will gently increase the density and availability of homes. The second thing that they talk about under building more homes is adding density near transit hubs. So many levels of government over time, I've heard, have pushed for this, in and around where the infrastructure already exists for transportation, things that are, convenient to whether you're buying or you're renting, whatever it may be. People need to get around, right? And so when the city, when the municipality, when the region and the province are putting in funds to build infrastructure, so highways, transit hubs, GO station, local public transit, all of that, when they're putting in that money for that infrastructure, it only makes sense that the most number of people are going to be able to benefit from it by staying close by. And so they're talking about increasing density near these transit hubs. Another thing that they've proposed is revitalizing new housing supply. So as of right now, if a mid-sized rental apartment building is demolished, individual cities and municipalities can limit what's built on site. So they can specify the size and the number of replacement units that happen in the new building. So in the past, the reason for this has been to preserve the affordable rents and protect the existing tenants. However, if you put a cap on how many units can be built, for example, a mid-size rental, and then you can't build, like a high-rise rental there, that's caused issues. Of course, it does provide certain protections for existing tenants, but what it does is that space that's available there that could have more housing units and can house more tenants and more people, now due to certain, somewhat obscure municipal regulations, the supply of rental units is limited. And so what the provincial government wants to do is to still protect the renters that were already there, absolutely provide them the protections of them staying in place and to preserve those affordable rents, but also add many more units because it's possible and it's definitely needed. Another thing that the provincial government is now proposing is to look closely at municipal housing targets. So as Ontario's population overall has grown, the housing construction has not kept pace. And for the most part, all over the Greater Toronto area, it's pretty much the same situation. Housing stock has to catch up and keep up with population growth projections. As I mentioned, federal government announced that immigration is going to go up. Previously, it used to be, around 300,000 people per year, 350. During COVID, that completely stopped for obvious reasons, the pandemic, and now they're ramping it up even higher and higher. Previously, the estimate was 400,000 per year. Now it's 465,000 for next year, and as I mentioned, about 500,000 for the year after that. So we're bringing in a ton of more people right into Canada, and we're welcoming them through immigration, but we don't have space to house them. So municipalities have resources where they have population forecasts and employment forecasts and all of that to see how much population is going to be added to their cities. This helps them plan for what their communities might need in the next couple of decades. But a lot of the approach there has been in terms of infrastructure, right? Planning schools, planning parks, planning transit and streets and stuff like that. And all that is very, very important, but so is housing, right? we're making sure that kids have schools to go to. We are making sure that people have grocery stores and plazas and everything to shop at. We're making sure that there's enough parks and enough trails for people to enjoy. But on a municipal level, I don't know if they're doing enough to make sure that enough homes are being built in those municipalities. So what the provincial government is proposing is they're going to be asking 29 of Ontario's largest and fastest growing municipalities to pledge to address that gap that we currently see in housing over the next 10 years. So obviously details are not provided on how this is going to happen, but that is a proposal that they would like to pursue in conjunction with the municipalities. Obviously with development approvals and stuff like that, municipalities and regions, so for example, Region of Peel or City of Mississauga, those levels have a lot of control over what's built in their cities. And so it would be obviously a communication between the region, between the municipality, and between the provincial government. Another thing that they're proposing is identifying more land for housing. So the government wants to look at making more land available for housing, and they're continuing to expedite housing construction on underused provincial land. So that's bringing provincial lands available either to sell or lease, and working in presumably what I think are partnerships with private builders in order to use that land and introduce more housing into it. So that's something that they also want to focus on. They also would like to build more schools. As I mentioned, provincial government and municipalities and regions are doing very well in terms of accommodating infrastructure and projecting what infrastructure will be required in the coming years to keep up with population increases. So what big component of that is building more schools. And then they'd also like to look at more affordable housing options. So this is kind of a broad point. A lot of attention has been paid to the lack of attainable and affordable housing, especially given the current market state. Of course, with qualification rates through the roof, it's very difficult for, average people making very good money and having great credit, good jobs and sometimes two incomes in the family, and still they can't find a place to live, whether it's rental or to purchase. So we definitely do need more affordable housing, and the province recognizes that, especially around transit and other high density areas. And so they are going to be consulting on how to make inclusionary zoning rules more consistent, which refers to obviously the zoning that's applicable in certain municipalities, and trying to make it easier to add units, turn a single detached home into a duplex or a triplex or something like that. And they are going to be looking at sort of various methods over time to introduce more affordable housing options into Ontario, which is very, very much needed. So those are the main points that really are covered in the first section, which is building more homes, and some of the things that the government hopes to do over the next few years in terms of building more homes and meeting that supply. The second section that I wanted to cover on this video is the section on helping home buyers. So the government obviously recognizes that it is difficult for people to purchase a home. One contributing factor, huge contributing factor, obviously, is Ontario's housing supply crisis, which they recognize. And so what they want to do is help home buyers be able to buy. Right? So to prioritize Ontario families and home buyers, not foreign speculators or foreign buyers looking to just turn a profit, the government of Ontario is increasing, and they did, I have a video on it, they increased the non-resident speculation tax rate from 20% to 25% to further deter foreign buyers from buying up units and housing in Ontario, and to preserve those for the people of Ontario. And so I'm going to put a link down below where I talked in detail about the non-resident speculation tax and the increase in Ontario that went from 20 to 25%. So increasing this tax rate will strengthen efforts to deter non-resident investors from speculating on the province's housing market, and to make home ownership instead available to Ontario residents. The other thing that they also want to do is incentivize more efficient use of vacant homes, which is going to be interesting. But they want to do like a local vacant home tax, and I know that there was discussion about it being in Toronto, which I think, yeah, the policy exists currently in Toronto. It was first introduced a couple of years ago in Vancouver to address their supply issue. Then it was brought into Toronto also to address their supply issue, and now the provincial government is talking about making it applicable across Ontario, because a lot of different municipalities and regions are looking into it already. So local vacant homes taxes would encourage property owners to either rent or sell unoccupied homes, so more families can afford a home, right? More vacant homes that are sitting on the market, they're out of the market, they're not available, right? But if you tax them for keeping them empty, the owners would either put them on the rental market, so you get a tenant in there, and then that increases rental market supply, or they would sell it, and then that would increase supply of listings for purchases. Either way, it would increase supply. The government is also going to be launching consultations with stakeholders and experts to explore home financing models. Right now, we have the traditional sort of conventional and non-conventional mortgages for first-time buyers or repeat buyers, right? But they're also looking at programs, for example, rent to own, that would help both renters and home buyers realize their dream of home ownership. So I really think that financing models there's a lot of exploration to be done there. There are a lot of options that aren't as feasible because current policies don't allow it. But as we move forward in time, as we, try to battle these crazy prices and our supply issues, one of the things that can help existing home buyers and people that are in the market right now is having, different financing methods. So certain lenders, for example, won't let you get together with a group of friends and buy. Or if you have more than 6 people on title, the lender raises question marks and they don't qualify for you for a mortgage. So that and fractional ownership, for example. Fractional ownership works in some countries, it's welcomed in some countries, but it's not so popular in Ontario or in Canada. And so all of these different creative home financing models that weren't applicable back in the day or when they weren't required, but might be required now, right, for future generations to be able to afford to buy homes, whether it's through shared ownership or fractional ownership or whatever it might be. A lot of new sort of policy work has to be done to be able to accommodate these home financing models. And so that, I think, would be a great thing for them to do. Overall, that's kind of what they've covered in the helping home buyers section. They also have the 2 other sections, which are reducing construction costs and fees, which I'm not going to get into, and the streamlining of development approvals, which I'm also not going to get into, but I am going to provide the link down below so you can read what that act is actually proposing. As I mentioned, it's about 50 different measures, of which we cover the ones that apply most directly to the housing market and to the real estate market. But, anything that any government is doing in order to increase supply and to make home ownership easier for people in a market like Toronto and the GTA, where we are a world-class city and we have crazy expensive real estate prices, and it would be awesome. It would be amazing to be able to house all of the people that are here, all Ontario residents, have a roof over their head, whether it's rentals, whether it's purchasing, affordable, market affordable, whatever you want to call it. We have a huge housing spectrum and we have a shortage basically in each and every category, right? So any sort of any measures that the government or other parties can bring into play that would help solve this crisis would be amazing. And that's why I think that this is it's an ambitious act. It's just a bill right now, so it's proposed. It has not become legislation just yet. Obviously, the government is going to undergo feedback sessions and consultation sessions with stakeholders and hopefully the public as well. But this is, I think, a great starting point that addresses the supply issue that we clearly have in Ontario and in Canada. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of the video, and I hope that that explanation was helpful. I do have a keen interest in public policy outside of real estate. That is definitely my passion, and so being able to combine both of those things, public policy and administration, with my field in real estate, and being able to share this with you guys is something that I hope you find helpful. If you do, please share in the comments below that it was helpful so I can continue making these videos. But Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And do subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit the thumbs up button, because I do post new videos, informative videos about real estate in the GTA every single week. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.